When my father died, I thought the pain would come from learning to live without him. But I was wrong. The real heartbreak came from the man I had vowed to spend the rest of my life with. My name is Lauren Caldwell. I'm 36 years old, and for a long time I believed I was living a fortunate life. I had a stable career, a husband who seemed charming, and a father who was my anchor in every sense. After my mother passed when I was 20, my father became my closest confidant. He was the founder of Caldwell West, a company he built from scratch into a thriving business. To me, he was more than a parent, he was the foundation of my world. 8 years ago, I met Andrew at a marketing conference in Chicago. He was a keynote speaker, charismatic, confident, smooth. I was instantly drawn to him, and within 2 years we got married. My father walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes, while Andrew's mother, Evelyn, sat stone-faced in the front row in a designer gown and disapproval written all over her face. From the beginning, Evelyn never warmed up to me. I overheard her at our rehearsal dinner whispering to Andrew, "She's nice, but she doesn't look like CEO material." Still, I tried. I sent flowers, invited her to dinners, extended kindness, but nothing melted that icy wall. Years passed, and when my father's health began to decline, we hoped for more time. But cancer doesn't care about hope. He died quietly in his sleep just 4 months after his diagnosis. At the funeral, Evelyn arrived late, sunglasses never leaving her face, and she left before the service ended. Andrew was distracted throughout, offering logistical help but little emotional support. The next morning, I got a call from my father's attorney asking to meet about the estate. I didn't think much of it at first. I had no idea that call would be the first step in uncovering not only a fortune but the true face of the man I married. I walked into the attorney's office expecting to hear about a few properties, maybe some retirement accounts, nothing life-changing. I wasn't prepared for what came next. He handed me a folder and looked me straight in the eye. "Your father left everything to you, Lauren. The company, the properties, all the accounts. After taxes and fees, it's valued at just over $35 million. I stared at him, my hands trembling. $35 million. It didn't feel real. I wasn't excited. I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow. Because all of this came at the cost of losing the one person who had loved me unconditionally. The money didn't feel like a gift, it felt like a farewell letter. That night, I sat on the couch, the documents spread out across the coffee table. Andrew came home from work, glanced down at the papers, and gave a low whistle. "So it's true," he said, sitting beside me. "It's really all yours." I nodded slowly, still processing everything. "Yeah, I didn't expect it to be this much." Andrew smiled, but there was something different in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. "Well," he said, shifting his tone, "we should probably talk about what to do with it. I mean, obviously we'll invest, maybe buy that place in Aspen you liked. And of course we need to figure out how much to give to Mom." I blinked. "What?" He looked at me like I was being slow. "My mom, Evelyn, she's family. We give her half, right?" I laughed, not out of amusement, but shock. I genuinely thought he was joking. But when I looked at him again, he wasn't smiling. "Tom, this is an inheritance from my dad. Why would we give half to your mother?" He tilted his head, his voice gentle, like he was talking to a confused child. "Because she's family, Lauren. She raised me alone. She's been through a lot. It's only right." And that's when I felt the first crack. The air between us shifted. The man I loved was no longer sitting next to me. In his place was someone I didn't recognize, someone who saw dollar signs where I saw grief. I stared at him, heart pounding. "Andrew, my dad left this money to me, not to us. It's not a lottery win. It's his legacy, his life's work. Why would I give half of it to your mother?" His expression tightened. He leaned back, arms crossed. "Don't be selfish, Lauren. You know she's family." "She's your family," I replied, my voice flat. "Not mine. She never even liked my father. She left his funeral early. She hasn't called me once since he passed." Andrew's voice rose, sharper now. "That's just how she is. She's not good with emotions, but she cares. You think you're the only one who lost someone? What about my loss? Watching my wife turn into a greedy person overnight?" That word greedy cut deep. I opened my mouth, then shut it. There was nothing left to say. I stood up. "I need some air." As I walked out the door, I heard him mutter, "Unbelievable." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his words echo in my head: greedy, selfish. Sure, it wasn't about the money. It was about how quickly he'd shifted. How little he seemed to care that I'd just buried my father. My dad once told me grief doesn't change people. It reveals them. He couldn't have been more right. The next day, Andrew acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, kissed my cheek, and talked about the weather. I played along, but I was done pretending. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. I saw the name on the screen. Evelyn. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the best of me. "Lauren, sweetheart," she said, her voice overly sweet. "Andrew told me the wonderful news. I'm so proud of you. Your father was such a smart man." There was a pause. I didn't speak. I knew what was coming. "I know this might feel awkward," she continued, "but since you're coming into all that money, I thought maybe we could sit down and talk numbers. I have some ideas, investments, real estate, maybe even a new place for myself. Nothing extravagant. Just something tasteful." I gripped the phone tighter. "Evelyn," I said calmly, "I lost my father less than a week ago, and you want to talk about numbers." She clicked her tongue. "He would want you to take care of family. That's what good daughters and good wives do." I took a deep breath. And then I said the words that would set everything in motion. "Evelyn," I said, my voice steady but cold, "with all due respect, you are not my family. You're not entitled to a cent of this money, and the fact that you're bringing it up right now, when I'm still grieving, says a lot about your character." There was silence on the line, but only for a moment. "You always thought you were too good for us," she snapped, her voice turning sharp. "Well, let's see how long you last when you're all alone, sweetheart." She hung up before I could respond. My hands were shaking as I lowered the phone, not from fear but from something deeper. Betrayal, rage, realization. By dinner, Andrew had already heard about the call. He didn't even try to hide his anger. "You had no right to speak to my mother that way," he said as he slammed his fork down on the plate. "She had no right to ask for money," I shot back. "She's my only family," he argued, "and I won't let you treat her like garbage just because you got a windfall." I stared at him, eyes burning. "This isn't a windfall. It's a grave, Andrew. My father died. And instead of mourning with me, you and your mother are treating it like a lottery ticket." He had no response. His silence said everything. Over the next few days, things only got worse. Evelyn began showing up unannounced. Once with a folder of property listings and another time with an interior designer in tow. She walked around my home like she already owned it. Andrew never stopped her. In fact, he encouraged it. "She's just excited," he said. "Don't be so dramatic." Dramatic? Ache. I was watching my marriage fall apart piece by piece, and I was being called dramatic. That's when I took the next step. I started locking the office where I kept the legal papers. I changed every password I had. I moved a portion of the funds into a separate account under legal guidance. Then I called my lawyer again, this time for a private meeting. "I'm not sure where this is going yet," I told him. "But I need to know what I can do to protect myself." He nodded slowly. "You're not the first to come in here after an inheritance," he said. "But most people don't come with security cameras." I blinked. "Cameras?" He leaned in. "Install them, now. Especially if you live with someone who thinks they deserve half of everything." The idea of installing cameras in my own home made my skin crawl, but I followed his advice. 2 days later, the footage proved exactly what I feared. Evelyn had been in my office again. The camera caught her rummaging through drawers, flipping through folders, checking labels on envelopes. She wasn't looking for a notepad. She was looking for something very specific. I confronted her that evening. "I saw you in my office," I said calmly. "You were trying to find the inheritance documents." She gave a breezy laugh. "Oh, Lauren, I was just looking for a notepad. Andrew said you kept extras in there." Her hand had been inches from the locked file drawer. "Next time," I said, my voice cold, "ask." She smiled tight, smug. "Of course, dear." As soon as she left the room, I locked the drawer again. Then I backed up the footage and saved it twice. That night, I confronted Andrew. "Your mother was going through my office. She was trying to find the paperwork." He didn't even blink. "She was just curious," he said. "It's a lot of money, Lauren. People get curious." "She had no right." He rubbed his temples, looking frustrated. "You're being paranoid. It's not like she stole anything." "She doesn't have to steal it," I snapped. "She's trying to manipulate us into giving it to her." Andrew stood up, voice rising. "She's not manipulating anyone. She's trying to help. And frankly, you should be grateful someone is thinking clearly about how to use this money. You're acting like a hoarder." I froze. A hoarder. He must realized he crossed a line, because he took a step back. "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you're keeping it all to yourself. That's not what families do." I stared at him, and something inside me hardened. This isn't about family, I said quietly. It's about greed, it's about control. And it's about the fact that ever since my dad died, you stopped seeing me as your wife and started seeing me as your wallet. Andrew scoffed and stormed out of the room. I didn't follow him. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. And I cried. Not for my father this time, but for myself, because I knew my marriage was over. I just hadn't signed the paperwork yet. Over the next week, I started preparing quietly. I met with a financial advisor recommended by my lawyer. I also contacted a second attorney, one who specialized in asset protection and high net worth divorces. Together, we reviewed every account, every document, every possible loophole that could be used against me. I began moving funds legally, strategically into a personal account that I could protect. I documented every transaction. I kept every receipt, every click, every login. But I didn't stop there. Following the lawyer's advice, I upgraded the entire security system. I installed cameras at every entry point. I even hired a private investigator to discreetly look into Evelyn's finances. What he found didn't shock me, it confirmed everything. She was drowning in credit card debt. She had 2 failed business ventures behind her and had recently inquired about opening a high-end skincare line with no capital and no investors. No wonder she had her claws out. Meanwhile, Andrew shifted gears. He went from cold to suddenly affectionate. One night he brought home flowers. Another night he cooked dinner, his first time in over a year. "I've been thinking," he said as we sat at the table, "maybe we got off on the wrong foot with everything. It's been a hard time. Losing your dad, dealing with the inheritance, planning our future." I watched him closely. This wasn't reconciliation, it was strategy. He was trying to charm me into lowering my guard, hoping I'd relax, hoping I'd forget everything he and his mother had done. "I think I'll pass on the trip," I said when he suggested we take a vacation together. Too much going on at work. He didn't push it, but there was a glint in his eye, a flicker of frustration he couldn't hide. The next morning I noticed my laptop had been moved, just slightly. The lid was open when I always shut it. I checked the login activity. 2 failed attempts to enter my password, and worse, the webcam light had turned on during the night. I confronted Andrew. "Must been a glitch," he shrugged. I didn't respond. I just changed my passwords again and took my lawyer's next piece of advice. Gather evidence, all of it, document everything. So I did. From that day forward, I documented every word, every shift in tone, every attempt to guilt me into handing over my inheritance. I kept a journal. I backed up video files. I recorded conversations with a small device my attorney had given me. Because when the time came, I wasn't just going to walk away, I was going to walk away with proof. 3 days after the laptop incident, Andrew stopped pretending altogether. The charm vanished. The flowers stopped. The dinners ended. He didn't bother with sweet words anymore. He just hovered watching me, like he knew something was slipping through his fingers but didn't know how to stop it. Evelyn, however, grew bolder. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table, barefoot, robe slightly open, drinking my coffee like she lived there. I froze. She looked up, smiled. "Emma," she said, fake warmth dripping from every syllable, "we need to talk." I didn't move. "You need to leave." She didn't flinch. "I just want to make sure you're not doing anything impulsive. You're under a lot of stress. I'd hate for you to make a financial mistake just because you're grieving." I laughed, bitter, cold. "You mean like not handing over millions of dollars to a woman who hasn't worked in a decade and calls me greedy behind my back?" Her eyes narrowed. "Careful, Lauren. It's not wise to make enemies in your own home." I stepped closer. My voice was low and steady. "This house isn't yours, and neither is the money. Now get out before I call the police." She stood slowly, glaring at me. "You think you're so smart, but women like you crack, sooner or later." I didn't look away. I watched her until she left. Then I locked the door behind her. I took a breath, picked up the phone, and called my lawyer. "It's time," I said. "I want to move forward." We began preparing the divorce filing, quietly, strategically. I'd already moved half the inheritance into a trust untouchable thanks to my father's foresight and how he'd structured the assets. The other half was still considered marital property unless I acted quickly. That night, I asked Andrew to meet me at a cafe the next morning. Neutral ground, public, controlled. And he agreed. He had no idea what was coming. I arrived early at the cafe, choosing a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. I had a leather folder in my bag and a flash drive in my pocket. Inside the folder, divorce papers. On the flash drive, months of evidence, video clips, audio recordings, email threads, screenshots, and one especially damning clip of Evelyn going through my desk drawers. Andrew arrived 5 minutes late, dressed in his usual business casual, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Lauren," he said lightly, sliding into the chair across from me. "What's this about?" I didn't answer. I took out the envelope and placed it on the table between us. He glanced down. "What's this?" "Divorce papers," I said calmly. He blinked. "Wait, you're serious?" "Completely." He leaned back, scoffing. "Over money? You're ending our marriage over money?" "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I'm ending it over disrespect, over betrayal, over watching you and your mother treat my father's death like your opportunity." His face tightened. He reached for the folder, but I slid it slightly out of reach. "There's also a flash drive," I continued. "I suggest you hand it to your attorney. It includes proof of everything: your mother snooping through my office, your attempts to access my laptop, and recordings of conversations that no one would be proud of in court." Andrew's face turned pale. "You planned this," he said quietly. "No," I said, "you did. I just responded." He didn't speak again. Not a word. I stood up, tucked the folder back into my bag, and looked at him one last time. "Goodbye, Andrew." Then I walked out of the cafe and into the cool morning air. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. This wasn't revenge through rage. It was revenge through clarity, control, and self-respect. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who didn't value you, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more real stories of strength and redemption.